I actually think Lanfear, for all of her evil misdeeds, is probably one of the kinder, more human of the Forsaken.
More Forsaken are no doubt on their way as the series continues. What would you say are the main differences between the ones we've met so far, Lanfear and Ishamael, and the ones we're about to learn more about?
I actually think Lanfear, for all of her evil misdeeds, is probably one of the kinder, more human of the Forsaken.
Agreed.
Some of the people we meet this season are truly deeply psychotic. And I do think each of the Forsaken is so different from one another and so different in how they approach the world that it's one of the really fun things to see is these variations of evil thrown up against each other. And can they work together? Do they work more against each other than they do with each other? All of that, I think, is such an exciting flavor in the books. And it's really fun when you get to see it come to life on the show.
We're headed to the Aiel Waste this season. What most appealed to you about the Aiel culture when you were researching for your scripts?
I think one thing that I loved the first time I read the books was the Aiel. I think they're one of the cultures that is most representative of Robert Jordan's ability to build something that feels as if it could be real. Oh, the Aiel don't feel like, oh, these are some fantasy tropes we've thrown together and this is how they make sense for this group. Like, they feel like a real people with a real culture, real history, real beliefs, real systems of honor. The authenticity of them in the books was something that we were all really excited to bring to life, and all of the departments worked together to infuse every bit of the Aiel that you see on screen with what was there in the books in terms of building their culture.
Would you say that the Aiel view their prophecies a little bit differently than those in the West?
You don't know how it's going to affect you. And I think in this case, it's one of those things where she spent all of this time thinking about the idea of this person and not who the reality of that person is. Yeah, she's not that impressed.
Rosamund, what is your perception of the ways in which Lanfear's goals and Moiraine's plans for Rand kind of line up?
Well, I mean, Moiraine is taking a big risk in forming an alliance with Lanfear, but perhaps to have Lanfear close is better than risking Rand potentially falling into the path of any of the other Forsaken. I think what Moiraine knows about Lanfear is that she loved the Dragon Reborn historically, and there's a lure for her in Rand that is romantic, and perhaps that's the thing that's going to keep him safe. I think she feels she won't kill him. She's frightened of Lanfear for her own sake. I think she certainly feels that Lanfear could kill her, which is why she tells Lan to get his Malchieri blade in the first episode. Now, the Malchieri blade is a blade that is carved with the true power and can kill Forsaken. So she's playing a high-stakes game, and it nearly goes very, very wrong. Is this the threads of the pattern leading her into the path of Lanfear? It definitely seems as the season goes on that their destinies are somehow interlinked and intertwined.
And Natasha, I'm so excited to talk about you. What a great character. You must have a lot of fun with her. What is your perception of the ways in which your character and Moiraine, their plans for Rand, line up?
It's a really interesting match, these two having to become comrades, somewhat comrades with one another, seeing as they really don't like each other, but they have to find a way to work together. It's obviously been a really beautiful thing to have such amazing scenes with Rosamund in this season as well, and explore that Lanfear Moiraine dynamic and actually how the heck does it work. The season expands on that. Obviously, we'll follow these women and how do they get Rand where they want him.
A very important relationship to each other outside of just what happens with Rand, and I think it's one of the most fun parts of this season is getting to see that relationship expanded upon.
Yeah.
Josha, we've seen Rand practice sword forms before, but this season he seems to be stepping up his game a bit. How would you explain Rand's dedication to learning this craft, even though he can channel?
That is a good...
That would be Moiraine's question too. Why is he wasting his time?
I know the answer. Channeling comes at great cost. And I don't think any of the characters really see why Rand is channeling. I think he does it because he knows at a certain point he's not able to rely only on channeling, because it just would become more dangerous and dangerous. So that's why he's learning more about other weapons that he can use, and maybe use both.
Now, I know you can't say much, but the relationship between the two characters, Aviendha and Elayne, in the books was sort of mysteriously close for readers, given the circumstances. What inspiration, if any, did you or the writers take from the page for the bond that they form on screen? Did you have to do some research into it, or?
Yeah, I think it's really weaved into Robert Jordan's text, and I think the relationship is there, although ambiguous. When Ayoola was cast, we chemistry read together, so we knew that this relationship was coming, so I think that really informed the way in which we read the books and how we saw the relationship, their closeness and their bond and their similarities and their differences. I think there's so much in there that really forms such a strong connection between the two characters.
Most of the readers, people saw it one way or the other, and I think we've just made a direction, and that's where we go.
Taken in its own direction. All right.
Yeah.
Now, when a hero denies being a hero, as your characters do, it can sometimes come off as a little false, but your characters actually genuinely feel like they're struggling with how their newfound powers are putting them in positions they're not used to. So is it satisfying for you guys as actors to play in that realm of self-doubt? Or do you live for the triumphant moments like in the finale?
I think so. I think there's something really relatable about kind of like a reluctant hero. I think there's something about when you're thrust into those positions, especially in fantasy, that there's usually some sort of like collateral around you, whether it be like kind of family and friends, and some characters really want to shy away from that, and they don't. They have their own kind of insecurities or doubts of themselves if people are starting to look to them. Perrin especially kind of feels like he's, any attention or any leadership bestowed upon him, isn't warranted. Yeah, I think that's quite interesting to play someone who's kind of thinking before kind of giving a speech or picking up a weapon, and those things I find quite interesting.
I think as well with the idea of like a reluctant hero, I think people that don't have that internal debate in shows like this feel sometimes just that bit like less relatable, because they just run into the fire without thinking. They act with like such kind of selflessness, and their call to action is so clear that I think, I don't know, just in like a kind of a modern age, is like that it's hard to connect to someone like that sometimes, because it takes such heroism, and it takes such bravery. A way of like connecting with the real life of these characters feels like a way of kind of asking, oh well, who am I to be this person? And of course, like, the call in response to that is like, who are you not to be? And I think that's what they learn. But I think it's very relatable to be like, I don't know if I have that in me to be the person that, people expect such greatness from. But I think as a viewer or a reader, objectively, you're going like, yeah, go on, you have it, like you can do it. That's just, it brings out a feeling in the audience to kind of go to, hopefully for them to kind of feel that in themselves as well,
This is what I was born to do.